Hello. Did you enjoy all your ads? Don't worry, I'm sure. Wait a minute or two, and there'll be some more ads. How did my video get scrunched down so there's another ad kind of here? Um, Also, maybe tried to get away from the stuttering. I'm finding nowadays that when I'm watching stuff on YouTube, the video seems to stutter. While I use certain browsers that also kind of don't show ads, for some reason the streaming comes in well. I'm trying not to get too attached to that because I know at some point YouTube will quickly stamp down on that. They don't like you using things that are outside of their app, outside of their control. And it's illegal to actually change the YouTube app. It's probably illegal to make a separate thing for that. Now. And, maybe you just kind of remember YouTube in the old days, when there was, it was, you weren't worried about getting kind of stomped down for stuff, or, that there wasn't as much sort of openness to hate. If you're, if you're not, if you're a female, if you're of any kind of a minority, that a lot of like kind of white supremacist groups are just feel happy about screaming at. Maybe you miss the days when that was like maybe a little bit more frowned upon. All that sort of stuff. There's all the copyright strikes. There's just the general things of has kind of shrunk this service down in a lot of ways. But, where are we going to go? Where, there is only YouTube now. Yes, there's things like Nebula, which is a kind of a paid for other service, which, some creators they made it because they were so sick of it that they decided to, make this offshoot. Though still, even then, I'm sure they're getting what has to be a fraction of the actual audience of what the monopoly that YouTube is. It's monopoly in name only. I mean, if there was any competitors, they would immediately get crushed by YouTube with its overwhelming market dominance, the overwhelming amount of money it has, all stuff like that. Now, why would I happen to be mentioning this standing next to a book called nshttfctn by Canadian science fiction author, kind of internet activist, Cory Doctorow, Canadian, by the way, 2025. Well, nshttfctn, why everything suddenly got worse and what to do about it, is talking about in the most specific form. When he says like his most pedantic definition of the word that he coined, nshttfctn, is basically platform degradation. However, and he's quite happy about this, nshttfctn also has, and probably even in the book itself, starts applying this to how all these different companies in different sectors that have all kind of conglomerated together into like maybe 4 or 5 companies within a sector, or even less. As I say, YouTube, I think, is the only player really when it comes to a video site, where these corporations have got us all trapped. They've lured us in with just like, we're going to give you everything, we're going to make everything wonderful you get, and they draw in every single person into their system. And then once they've got every single person into the system and they promise them, we're always going to treat you great, well, then they go over to businesses and say, businesses, hey, we've got all these rubes here that we've told that we're going to treat them all great. We're going to now treat you great and let you advertise to them, very targeted. We've spied on them. We promised we wouldn't, but we've spied on them. We've gathered all this information on them so we can target our ads exactly to them, precisely to them, so specific. It's like, it'll be great, and we're not going to even charge you much. And so they draw all the businesses in. So all the businesses are basically dependent on this particular platform for selling, whether that's Amazon or YouTube or various things. Like, this is it. This is the only way you're going to reach your customers. And once they've got them trapped, they go like, well, we don't have any competition. We've got everybody trapped. We have a gigantic war chest so that we've been able to basically lobby for laws and stuff like that, that it's illegal to actually, like, for an app, it's illegal to actually to modify that app. That is a felony. You will get in major shit if you do that. That's why they don't want you on a website or anything like that. Websites, browsers, for example, they could do whatever they wanted with YouTube. Maybe not show you all those annoying pop-up ads and everything like that. Maybe give you a proper video stream of your video. Once they've got everybody there, they say, like, well, now we can make all the money. We don't need to do innovation. We can make this as shitty a site as possible. We can up the rates for the business people so that they have to pay more and more money. And we don't really even care who we're targeting the ads towards anymore. It can just go to anyone and it's useless. He cites one study in here where a company basically just abandoned their market buy-in for, I can't remember if it was Facebook or not, like that. And actually their sales went up. Versus down in the thing, because the ads have become so useless and meaningless. And generally, we are just going to make it worse and worse and worse service, which is great because it gives us more and more money. And the poor suckers on both ends, both the users and the business, they can't do anything about it because they're all trapped. There's a thing called basically the cost, the amount that it costs to change, whether like you're on Facebook and basically all your friends are on Facebook, maybe special groups like you've got a particular illness and that's where your support group is for that is on there, whether it's, you organize people in your community all on Facebook. You can't leave. You can't, you have to be stuck with it. You see, you're stuck. That's nshttfctn, this horrible, creeping stuckness. And he definitely points out how this is not something that is simply a internet, web platform thing. This is stuff like printers are kind of an older example of they've locked in printers. Like they sell you printers cheap because the ink itself they're charging, I believe he cites $10,000 per gallon is how much that ink costs. Doesn't cost them that, but that's what they charge you because they put a little chip on that each of the cartridges, and it is illegal to break that chip. That is a felony there to actually break that, to circumvent that system and then just be able to refill it with, $1 a gallon ink, which is probably the exact same ink that goes into, don't quote me on numbers, that the $10,000 ink that they provide, that they charge for, provides. That's John Deere. That's a lot of the smart device. That's the smart devices that they have so far fairly unsuccessfully been able to push. I don't know if it's unsuccessful. It's creeping more and more in. Of course, now we are getting early examples of businesses go out of business and they brick these smart devices, and suddenly instead of a smart device you have a dead device, versus if you had a fridge or whatever, or a speaker system. Actually, if you had a speaker system before and the company went out of business, you'd still have a speaker system. However, if the company has decided, no, we're no longer doing that speaker system, or that we're going out of business, that is a dead speaker system. You may have spent $10,000 on it like you did the old dumb speaker systems, but now there is no money for this. Now, the thing about nshttfctn is that this is not an inevitability as Dctrw sees it. This is something that has been done due to various policy decisions that, surprise, surprise, were pushed by very powerful and wealthy groups within the technology and just wider corporate business place. Stuff like the digital locks, which first was like all about music and stuff like that, or ebooks. Still not very popular, where you're no longer owning a book or a copy of thing. And I mean, Dctrw doesn't go into this, but I mean, something like an ebook, it's like there is the question of, back when you had just a physical book, yes, you could lend it to someone, but there wasn't there wasn't really the danger that I was going to make 10,000 copies of this and start distributing this. Whereas nshttfctn, which probably doesn't have a DRM on it because of being Cory Doctorow, that you could make 10,000 copies of, and like with a BitTorrent, 10,000, a million people could have this on their devices free of charge. So, I mean, that is a problem. That is a problem and I don't really care about big, gigantic corporations, of which the publishing industry has also been dominated by some very, very few players are now at the top of the that pile as well. There's no longer I think there was 12 when they were worried about it. Now there's like 5. It's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That seems to be the magic numbers for each sector getting swallowed up until there's one gigantic bloated fish at the center of these things controlling everything, and surprise, jacking the prices all the way up, and screwing the little guys, both the authors and the consumers. So I mean, there is some issues there, but that has gotten spread out to stuff like, inkjet stuff. That's gotten spread out to parts. Apple very much microscopically put little Apple initials on all its parts to make sure that nobody else could repair an Apple device of any sort. Which means that they can charge whatever they want for it versus going to a mom and pop shop in your own area and them having a pile of little parts and being able to pull it apart. No, that's the repairable things being repairable is not something that is something that's good for corporate business. Something that is, e-waste is not an issue for them. You should just buy a new one. You should just buy another Apple device. And a lot of other companies, especially auto companies, have figured this out, that, we basically make it illegal for you to use any part that isn't a officially branded part of the original manufacturer. Or they do stuff like, well, we've like a lot of e-devices, e-stuff, it's like, well, you want this feature, well, you're going to have to pay for that, and probably going to have to pay for it on a subscription thing, where instead of just buying it outright and having it always, now you're going to have to pay monthly for that. It's like, you can see how we are slowly getting screwed, and the product is getting shittier and shittier and shittier. But Dctrw he's very much kind of an activist. This isn't, there's some ways that my fiction-loving brain it kind of slogs through a book like this, because it's a long article. It's not like more of an artistic. This isn't art. This is activism. I need you to know this information, and I want you to use this information in a certain way, which is fine. It's good to have this kind of stuff. I think there's probably more nuances in here that Dctrw probably is not going. He's trying to communicate to Luddite lunkheads like myself. Hey, though I'm a Luddite lunkhead that knows Dctrw from his early days on Boing Boing, that's how I probably first, that or probably through some CBC program, probably heard from Dctrw earlier in life, like 20 or 30 years ago. But yeah, so he's definitely looking at things like, labor rights. He's looking at stuff like a net neutrality, the idea that yes, a lot of these platforms and a lot of stuff, they're basically middlemen, to use the sexist phrase. And they should not be the people who are controlling what we get or saying how we should use it. He makes very much the point that a computer is, what's it called? A universal von Neumann machine. Basically, an Apple and an Android are both computers. They can both run each other's programs with no problem. What's made this impossible in the modern era is the fact that they're owned by corporations who have made legislation, who have made laws that makes it illegal for you to ever adjust or get around them. They're middlemen, but they're not middlemen. They're gatekeepers, and they're gatekeepers who charge you an arm and a leg to to use anything in the system. He's very much somebody who is advocating for kind of a throwing off of a lot of the corporate inspired legislation and going for deregulation. Going for people should be able to move easily between interoperability. You should be able to move from platform to platform. You shouldn't be the walled garden experience. There should be proper labor laws for the workers of such corporations. He's advocating for that digital locks and stuff that prevents people from altering devices, that it becomes an actual felony, is something that should be put by the wayside. That these are that these things that are supposedly there to protect the poor corporations from being stifled, is actually there to stifle consumers, to stifle their customers, to lock them in as monopolies that can squash their competition and stuff like that. So I don't know if this is something where he is an activist, so I think in some way he is an optimist. He believes that there can be stuff done, and he kind of proposes things which makes me. He proposes things like we're going to put aside a lot of the constraints and stuff like that wealth that basically are rents that are put on us by our techno feudal overlords in Apple and in Amazon and stuff like that. We're going to put those aside and slice their profits away, detach them from their profits and weaken them terribly, and that this won't have retribution consequences. I think of in Canada, where they did try and pass some laws for kind of the media and stuff like that, and Facebook just said like, okay, well, we're not going to have any more media on our website, and just cut it off, and just kept on trucking along. And unfortunately, there were studies that said like, oh, we like our Facebook without the actual news media on it, which is slightly sad, because then true story, there's a garbage company in Canada, one of the major cities, that does news and is doing fairly well about it, but is doing it, without proper reporters or without proper vetting, without the proper kind of professionalism of a modern thing, or there's that, or is if we come for the American tech companies, is Donald Trump just going to come in guns blazing at us, because Cory Doctorow says, well, we'll make a lot of money by being the people who break the digital locks that give everybody the means to circumvent all the constraints that are put upon us, not for our protection or workers' protection, but is put there to just enrich corporations. I wonder how much he makes it sound very easy, let's say that way, or makes it sound like it's not going to entail a shitload of very rich and powerful and violent people coming for us. Which, I mean, is a way of saying like, yeah, I think he's there's a lot of stuff in here that I think he's completely right about, and how do you wean the people who are in government off of the teat of these powerful people and put them back on our side, and are able to use them in a mass way to change things, to make it better. It's much larger than, oh, there's annoying ads. Oh, this site, It was supposed to hook me up with my friends, but now it only just shows me AI garbage all the time. What it's much larger than that. This is people's employments, people who work for apps, who are put under horrible conditions as independent contractors. As somebody who was a delivery driver myself, I didn't work for one of these apps, but I did work for somebody who's like, oh, you're an independent contractor. That kept me out. Strangely, it kept me busy, but it was very much a losing proposition for me. And that was just one guy in a town who'd kind of came up with that idea for himself, not an uncommon idea. But apps have weaponized this, and talking about there's one scary passage in this book about how they're going to be putting electronic price listings on everything in a grocery store, and apparently they've done this in Norway, where they change the price thousands and thousands of times a day, because in a regular grocery store you'd have to send somebody out to change the price. And you could never even if you did that once every day, that would probably be cost prohibitive. But no, we're talking about like, well, it's just after work and people are coming home and they need their dinner, so we're going to jack the price up then. They say it's like, we're passing on savings. That this is the knob twiddling to nickel and dime you to death, which, all those nickels and dimes add up to even more pressure on people. And these are tools that are getting put in the hands of corporations who do not give one shit about anybody. They don't give a shit about their workers. They don't give a shit about the customers. All they care about is draining as much profit as possible while giving the least amount, the very bottom of the barrel experience. And this starts at the lowest levels and just works its way up until we're all covered in shit. Hooray! 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 So, while Dctrw is positive, is like sees that there's ways out of this, I also see, he is somebody who was arguing against digital locks back in the day, net neutrality, the idea that there shouldn't be throttling of services that way. And those fights, I don't know how well they went. These seem to be like fights that have been lost, and now we're in the nshttfctn is what he's calling it. I mean, he's not calling that this is like the worst thing that's happening to us. Unfortunately, there's many other, climate change, genocides. There are many other worse things that are happening, but these are all these things. Especially you talk about the internet. He's saying like, this is where the battle is going to happen, is on the internet. And if this is our public square for good and ill. And as it's more and more squashed down and more tamped down and more controlled and more the knobs are twiddled for the corporations' benefit, it makes it harder and harder for those battles, those important battles, to have people have information about and to make informed decisions as citizens of the world, not just consumers of the world, but citizens of the world. It makes it more and more difficult for that to happen. And I mean, you look at a lot of the discourse that happens at the moment, and you can see that's because the knobs have been twiddled a certain way. That's gone away from we're getting kind of what's actually happening in the world, and just more all the spin of what's happening in the world. And we're being spun and twiddled to death in a rising tide of shit. All right, I'm going to leave it there. I've been babbling for a while. More videos later.